Andrew. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry.
No panic. Not a problem.
No problem.
My fault for getting it wrong in my diary. I apologise. Ah,
So how is everybody? Got lots of chicks and eggs and things?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No chicks yet, but the eggs are in and they're fertile. So that's
Fantastic.
we're getting there.
Good. Good. How about you, Gareth? Have you got any?
Just getting a few eggs now. Not quite big enough to incubate because they're all last year's birds. But hopefully I'll get some in soon. Just got silkies and Scots Greys at the moment.
Excellent. I see you.
Right. We'll wait a few minutes for those people that got confused by not being able to get in. We'll give it a couple of minutes because
Okay,
this is unlimited.
I'll be back in a minute. I'll leave it open. I just need to go and put in a few birds then.
Okay.
So I'll leave it open. I'll be back in a minute.
So Natasha, are your chicks in the kitchen?
Yeah. You'll
Okay.
see.
Of course. Oh yeah. Looking good.
Non-stop eating machines.
Yeah, I know they are. Yeah, tell me about it. And the other end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one here.
You want one?
Yeah. But bizarrely all the way from Spain, Rachel.
I know.
How
I'm really-
bizarre.
I'm really chuffed. I'm really chuffed.
Oh, you and me both. We've got some in the incubator now from our lot as well.
Cool.
So hopefully.
Brilliant. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No,
But your lot are doing amazing. They're so strong. Considering they came all that way, it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. Cool.
What is that?
Well, when they first hatched, I predicted, how many cockerels and hens I thought I had, and now I was only three out either way. So
Wow. Amazing.
they are really, I've got to say. And Andy's hint of giving them carrot, I don't know what's making them, what the carrot does, but they are certainly progressing very fast.
Good. I'll get some when I go shopping on Saturday.
Yeah, you need to grow your own.
Oh, I've got no space. So much, like even my window is full of plants.
You must be careful with giving carrots. When you give too much, they have long ears.
Long ears.
Yes.
Like a garden, like a rabbit, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I got to
Good,
say.
right, let's kick off then, everyone. So we're not hanging around. Oh, Eleanor's back. So welcome, everyone. Hi, Natasha. First time for you.
Hi.
Welcome. Hi there. Alan, you can't be seen and you can't be heard, so I don't know who you are. So if you want, there you are. Right, something's happening. Andy, we can't see you either.
No, the camera's not working.
We're going to see a presentation. Hi, Alan. Hi there. Hi. We're going to see a presentation by Danny and Andy, with some help from Rachel, I think, as well. But first of all, I'm just going to update you on the situation, how things have changed, and a lot of it will be in the newsletter, which we're going to get the minutes from this meeting into the newsletter, and it will be out in the next week, we hope. So if you cast your mind back to previous newsletters and what I've been working on, in 2018, we said we were going to the kick-off meeting for the new registrars for the breeding programme. The RBST guy, Richard Broad, who's no longer with the RBST, said, right, we need to get serious about this. We need to get pedigrees, we need to get everything ID'd. And so we can get family trees like we do with cattle and sheep and everything else. Nobody's done it before with poultry, and there are other reasons why that's the case, but we're going to get serious about it. So that was 2018. We're now 2021. The wing tag issue, which makes identification at hatch a lot easier than waiting 9 weeks for the leg rings. So that the first batch of those have been sent out by the Poultry Club to some breeders. The Cloudlines, which is the database company, the RBST have said that they're going to pay for 12 months for the use of the database. So we need to make maximum use. It's a trial period for 12 months, and the RBST will then decide whether they're going to extend that. And Rachel and I attended Cloudline's introduction last night, and we'll maybe developing that and having other Zoom meetings to allow that to happen. So basically the first stage is to get the identification of the birds, individual birds. And the other reason that's important, you might remember reading about the breeds at risk register. That's a DEFRA thing, which if there's an outbreak of, say, avian flu next to you, you're going to lose all your birds. If it's 5 miles away, then if you can prove by identification numbers and also that you're in the breeding program, you might be left to keep them, and they might just remove those that aren't in the breeding program. We're not on the breed at risk register yet. That's another thing we're working on. So ID is the first thing. Wing tags can go straight in as they come out of the incubator. 2 types of wing tags, one for the chicks, and you can do that up to about 10 days, and you don't need an applicator. If you want to identify them later than that, then you need to have an applicator because the wing tags are slightly larger, and that is and that's all organised the same as the leg rings by the Poultry Club. And that again is a trial for 12 months just for the target breeds. But the bottom line is we're going to adopt it whether they like it or not, one way or the other, because the Poultry Club are only looking at it as an identification, but we've got to look at it as a pedigree. So that information needs to be uploaded onto the pedigree system so that we can have an idea of where we're going with these breeds. So there are 7 breeds, target breeds as someone's called them. It's mentioned in the previous newsletter. So that's what we're working on. And the final thing is the breed at risk register application itself. So we're still putting that together. We've been told it can go on it because the strange thing is that some breeds have been accepted on it which haven't been around as long as the Spanish. They've got their reasons for that. So we're working on that. So we've been, it's been accepted that without too much paperwork, we can go on the breed at risk register. So we'll be eligible to save from birds from being culled. But we need to dot the I's and cross the T's. So on the face of it, nothing's going on, but everything's going on because the ring tags, cloud lines, everything has been going on for about 6 months. We've been waiting for everyone to dot the I's and cross the T's, Poultry Club, RPS, everyone. And the RBST have taken a long while to make their decision and to agree to pay for the Cloudlines database. So that's where we are at the moment. So it's all moving forward. The only final thing is that quite a few people have asked me and some of the other registrars of the target breeds, we have what is part of the breeding program, but what is the breeding program? Tell us what the breeding program is and we will join it. And we'll try and adopt a new system because maybe they're new breeders and they don't have anything. So a couple of us have been working on that so that we can identify a breeding program. What is a breeding program? What are the alternatives? And it's not compulsory. It's just an idea to answer those people that have the question, where do I start? So that's quite a big document. It's too big to go into the newsletter. It will bore everyone. It's quite a lengthy document and it's only gone out to a few of those breeders that have been breeding for quite a long time, quite experienced poultry breeders. So they've cast their eyes over it. So we might put it out in bits and pieces. We might put a copy on the website. Remember to go back on the website to look at all the new articles that are going up there, because I'm trawling whatever I can to put on there for the benefit of everyone. I don't know if anyone's seen it. There's the what to look for on when you buy a Spanish birds, for instance, a buying guide, and there's some other stuff on there as well. So if you've not looked for a while, have a look. It's historical stuff. It's back from 2007, but anything I can find on the breed, I'm trying to get onto the website to give people a background information. So really, that's all I've got to say. If anyone's got any questions, then we'll leave it until the end, and we'll do any other business at the end, because you're probably going to have questions that's going to come up from the presentation. So if I can just introduce Danny Kamerlink, who is a breeder, and he's online from Belgium, and Andy Marshall, a breeder in Devon, a long-time breeder. You've all heard of Andy. They're between them are going to do give a presentation on hatching and breeding in general. And Rachel's going to facilitate that as she's now the host. So we'll hand over to the three of you to handle the rest of the meeting. And thanks for coming, everyone.
Okay, thanks. You should be able to share your screen now, Danny. I think I've already sorted that. Right, Simon entered the room. Can you share it, Danny?
One moment, please. I'm
Okay.
busy trying, but I lost the Zoom.
So Rachel, you're going to start recording this because there are a few people that couldn't attend.
I am recording.
If you remember, if everyone's okay with that, just so that people can catch up with.
Yeah.
Okay, I think now we can see everything.
Yeah, I can see it. Can
Yes.
everyone?
Yeah, it's working, Danny. Yep.
Okay, thank you. First, one little question. Is it possible when I do the presentation, most people put it on mute because background noises can be a little bit disturbing sometimes? Okay, thank you. Everybody hears me?
We can. Well,
Yes.
not
Just a thumbs up. Okay. Okay, thank you. So off we go. There is a presentation on the way how we start the season of reproduction, and also what we do when we have chicks. I'm not going to go in detail on how the incubation process needs to be, because that's a full evening program on its own. But I can give some information during the slides. So I hope most of you now have eggs already incubated or the hens are laying. So we can go to the next page. So first of all, everything that comes out of an egg has to be added to the mother before the egg is laid. It's very important that your breeding birds that we have in the previous session been talking about, what are the good ones, what are the minor ones. So when we have selected those, we can give them the best care before they start laying eggs for incubation. So food is very important. And it's not only giving some grain mix or so that won't give strong chicks and won't give good hatches. So it's very important to give a good breeder pellet or crumble. I prefer pellet because then they cannot select what they eat, so they have to eat everything, and there's not so much spillage. Always take care that chickens that are laying eggs have enough chalk in the form of grit or oyster shells to give strong eggshells. You must understand that when an egg is produced, the scales need to be put around, but the chalk for that comes out of the carcass and the bones of the pullet. So that's very important that there is enough provided to build up enough chalk for the chickens to lay.
Danny,
So-
I think they probably ought to tell them the chalk is calcium, if anybody. thinks it's
Yes. Well,
calcium.
sorry for my translation. It's
Your
not
English
always-
is very good, but I'll chip in if and when. I knew what you were talking about, but it's calcium.
Yes, it's calcium. Yes, of course. So the genetics, it's very important. When we have poor genetics, then only poor genetics can come out. So the vitality is also very important. But that are things we have to work for a whole year, and when buying or having new stocks, it's very important to do the good selection there. The cockerels need to be in prime condition. Normally they need to be in good condition at least 1 month before we start collecting eggs, because if we want fertility, we need to have good cockerels. First years, when I say it right, cockerels are first years, normally give good fertility from the start, but the older cocks can give a little bit of a slow start. So first eggs not always as fertile, but when you know it and you prepare the older ones and let them start a little bit later, it's no problem. So then we have early breeding needs in most cases extra light, because the hens, if no extra light is given, they only start laying around February or so. If they are young pullets, maybe they can go through winter, but not very many eggs. But there's a little bit of information later on. So Andy has given me a slide with the importance of the egg. Most people know
Shall-
what's inside of an egg because they have seen it when they eat it, but it's very complicated how an egg is constructed. It's a miracle as is.
Shall I run through that one and then you pick it up on the next one? Do you think,
Okay.
Danny?
Yes,
Yep.
yes. Have a go.
What you need to remember is that what you fed your chickens today will be in your eggs in 6 weeks' time. So you need to remember what Danny has already told you. Now, the basic embryology of an egg is that the construction of the embryo needs oxygen. So you've got to have a porous shell, and it produces carbon dioxide. So oxygen is absorbed in and carbon dioxide goes out. Now, the germ cell, which is a bunch of cells that you will see on the yolk, is fed during the incubation from the albumin. The yolk has got absolutely nothing to do with it. Now, the chalazier, which are the white things on either side of the yolk, are the important parts because they turn the egg. When you physically turn the egg, or the broody turns the egg, they twist in opposite directions, and that washes the albumin over the yolk, and it feeds the embryo. So that is the way that the embryo then grows. It goes through a period of, if any of you have done some biology, gastrulation and the blastocyst, and it develops. So what you need to remember is that this egg, everything that you must do, you can only do until the egg is laid. Once the egg is laid, if you pardon the French, all the human can do is bugger it up. So you do a lot before and you take great care afterwards, which Danny and I will explain, because we can't do nothing to make the egg better. Because obviously, if you remember the shell, which has got to have good calcium, and the membranes inside, those are porous. so bacteria can get in, and this can then subsequently cause problems in hatchability. So when people are complaining that their eggs aren't hatching, they had fertile eggs and their eggs aren't hatching, it is probably something, a human, if you bought the eggs, or another human, what you have done. It's not the fault of the hen. So that gives you just a basic structure of the egg, how the eggs are washed to feed the embryo. The other thing to remember is if with the eggs, you've got an automatic incubator and the eggs are only being turned 180 degrees, you may find that you will have problems with the positioning of the egg in terms of problems with the chick not hatching well if it's just being turned one way and then the other. If you have a manual incubator, it's better to turn 3 times a day. But if you have an automatic incubator, try and just change it around so that the egg isn't automatically just going from one side to the other, from one side to the other. Hens naturally turn the eggs a little bit all the time. So that's just the basic principle of why the egg is so important, and take great care of your hatching eggs. So it's what you do before can help, what you do after can ruin. Okay, that's really the summary of the egg.
I've got a question with regard to the incubators. When you put them in, I've got a Brinsley where the eggs can stand pointy end down and the air cell at the top. Is that better, or is it best to lay them flat?
Every incubator does things differently, and so you just have to follow the instructions that you have on the incubator.
Right. Okay.
Because all incubate, you must rely on whatever incubator you use, you follow whatever they say.
Okay. I just didn't know whether it was better to lay them on their side or to stand them up in the racks which you can in a Brinsley. I didn't know.
I don't know. Have you got mine are all flat. What about you, Danny? What do you do?
I have the MS, so there they are standing point down. My experience is when post eggs, so eggs that went through post and package services that have been on the way for a long, rough voyage, give better results in a position of point down, because the air sac can be a little bit detached when the eggs are shaken or standing upside down with vibration. So I had eggs from Spain already that had very damaged air sacs, and when I put them in the MS incubator, then they stand up, so the air sac is not pulling on the membrane, and that gives better results. But that's the only reason why standing with the point down can be better than laying horizontal.
Should we go to the next slide?
Yes, yes. So now here we see an example from a food analyze. I won't go in detail for this, but if the presentation is provided to everybody, you can study it. You see the crude protein. It's very important to have enough protein because they need to be in sportsman condition, as I say. And when producing lots of eggs, it asks great resources from the pullets. But try to find a good feeding company. So I think there are some very good ones in UK as well. Here I have a recipe that's made from my personal veterinarian, and he works together with the company who makes this food. So it's very, very well balanced. We have good results with this. So now I show this is my lighting system. This is a dimmer system. It's very cheap when you use dimmable LED bulbs. It consumes about 20 pounds in one full season from September to April. So if you want early chicks, it's very important. Also, when you go to shows and you have a breed like the Spanish or the Andalusian or the Brackles with where the hens have falling combs, it's very important when they're coming in laying condition. You have to keep it that way when you give extra light. So from September on to March, April, I try to maintain the same day length all the time. Last year I did not give extra light because of COVID. There was no show, so I left them as they were. But I start about 1 month before I want eggs, giving extra day length to about 16 hours a day. I don't know if it's very very much used in England, but here most breeders use it.
Most successful people, Danny, will do a similar sort of system. I do the same sort of thing. You have to decide when you want to get the noise from the cockerels. I think it's better that they go to bed naturally, so you have to put on light, like 3 o'clock in the morning. So if you're living somewhere where you've got a lot of people nearby, they may not like it that way. So you may have to put lights on in the evening, but it's a personal thing. I mean, we put our lights on at 3 o'clock in the morning. But I think the reason for that is if you don't do that and the pullets, early hatch pullets have started to lay, they will go into a neck molt in October, November, and that will then delay their A, be no good for exhibition, and B, they won't then come into lay when you want your eggs. So that's the real reason for putting the lights on. Just remember, as Danny is saying about preparing the cockerels, poultry are long day breeders. Now, long day breeders means that day length, longer days stimulates egg production, whereas other animals are short day breeders, like sheep, for example. They're short day breeders, and that stimulates sheep to breed. So chickens are the opposite, so they stimulate with long day breeders. And that's why Danny was saying that younger cockerels become more virile earlier, because they will be in breeding condition faster, whereas the 12-month plus cockerel males, their testicles actually regress during the non-breeding season, and they're stimulated to lengthen during the extended light. So they respond to light, and it's the whole head that you need that responds to light. It's very light sensitive. So that's just the background to that one.
Okay, thank you. So now collecting and storing hatching eggs. There are different ways of doing that. I want to give one very important information. Rollaway nests are very useful when weather is not fine, so chickens all start to make the eggs dirty. So also egg picking can be a very severe problem. Once they've learned it, it's not easy to let them leave the eggs alone. So that's why I use these rollaway nests. I've constructed them myself from some leftover wood. One thing I must say about that, it's you have to take care of red mites, because these are the favorite places where they hide. So if you have a good system of keeping the red mites away, then you won't have problems. But if you don't do anything and they show up, then they will be here in the small cracks and so. Then there's another thing. Put as much information as possible on the eggs. When you have different breeding pens or different bloodlines, you can put information. I'm mostly the laying date and also the origin, male, female, are always put on the egg, so I can select what I use for breeding, for hatching, and also when they hatch, I can tell who is who. I also use this system for turning the eggs. Some people don't do it. I do it since the beginning because when a chicken that's laying a nest of eggs, when she comes to the nest, she turns the eggs all around. So I think it's a little bit more natural when they are turned that way. It's also easy when you have something like that. 120 eggs can be turned in 1 second. So here is some more information on that. So I think most is said already. So the room where you keep your collected eggs, for it's not too cold and not too hot is my thumb rule. If they are below 5 degrees, it's risky when you have cold nights, and above 80 degrees is a problem because then they can lose vitality. So this is what I told about point down. So the length of viability is that can be 1 month, but it's not very well to do that. After 10 days, the hatching results go down by 3% a day. So you have to keep that in mind. If you have eggs enough, then it's no problem to put some extra in. They may be older when it's for your own incubation. I always bring the eggs to room temperature before putting them in the incubator or under a sitting hen. When my incubator is working, I put several batches at different times, so he's nice on temperature, and then you put 50 or 60 stone cold eggs. Then the temperature dives for a few hours below the setting point. So that's why I always bring them to room temperature.
Yeah, just the point there to reiterate what Dan is saying is if you're when you're candling your eggs at day 5 or day 10 and you see a red line down the egg, it's called split yolk, and that's because you put the eggs in too cold. So it was fertile, but you killed it because the egg was too cold, because it came as a huge shock because it went into the incubator.
So then you have natural incubation. I must say I never have done it. When you have Brackles that are non-sitters, when you have Andalusian that are not non-sitters, so then when you want to breed for shows, you need more chicks, especially with the Andalusian. You have to color all the splash and all the black, so you need many eggs for having some chickens. With Spanish, it's a little bit easier because all that's been born, it's all black, so you don't have to select from day one. But there are some advantages and some disadvantages on natural incubation. Andy, can you talk about it a little
Yep,
bit?
yep.
Because you're,
I mean,
you're
yeah. I mean, I think I showed my first birds when I was 5, but and until I went to university, I did all my incubation by brooders. I'll give you a bit more on the next slide. It is cheap. It is easy. You do have a limited amount of chicks, but you can find that the chicks that you get are often sometimes a lot better than reared artificially. You can't rely on a Spanish. They will go broody, but very rarely. I had, for example, a Spanish hen that went broody under a shed. She did hatch the chicks and then she deserted them. And if you've ever tried to catch a dozen black Spanish chicks that were 3 days old running around under a large 12x8 shed, it's not the best thing. So she hatched them, but she wouldn't rear them. And obviously there is a risk of predation, crows, foxes or whatever. And the management and handling, which I'll cover in the next slide, there is a very important few principles to carry out with that. So if we go to the next slide. All right, now, you must keep the broodies separate. The two photographs on the right show what we call a double classic broody box or a sitting box. You can access it from the top, and you can then allow the hen to go in from the front. The traditional thing is to cut a turf, turn it upside down, scoop it out, and then wrap round with hay and straw. It needs to be somewhere cool so they don't get too hot in the summer, and it's better sort of away from all the noise of the poultry. So it wants to be somewhere quiet. If you see the picture here, you can see that the handler here is that he's got the bird's feathers on the top and he's pushing his hand underneath. If you try and pick up a broody that's sitting from the side, she'll have eggs underneath her. So when you lift her up, you will trap eggs and then you will drop them, and therefore you ruin your eggs. So the way to do it is to grab the top of her back with a bunch of feathers, slightly raise her so that you can then slip your hand underneath. And it's better to do that from the side. If you do it from the front, she will go for you if she's a good broody. So you just slip your hand underneath and then you lift her out and you won't drop your eggs. Now, the most reliable source of broodies are what we call brown tops. Those are light Sussex females crossed with a white silky male. The chicks are sex linked. All the pullets, all the females are brown and all the males are white. So you can sort them out at day old. And the other thing is you train your broodies. So it's best to use a trial batch until you know the broody, and then you can use them. The trick is often to use two broodies, put the two, sit them at the same time, then put all the fertile eggs under one and resit them. I've comfortably sat reliable broodies for 9 weeks and they've reared the third batch. So when you get a good broody, they work very well. They need to be fed once a day on whole wheat and water in a small confined area, but you don't want to allow them to see the eggs. And the trick is that you must ensure that they defecate before you put them back, otherwise it will foul the nest. And there's a very simple way of doing that, is you have your broodies, and if she's not performed, she normally will perform, but if she hasn't performed, just get a fine rose of water in a watering can and pour it over her. You don't need very much, just a little, and that convinces her that it's raining, and the first thing goes in her brain, I must go back and protect my eggs. And you don't, there is the old-fashioned way of lifting them up and dropping them down to the ground, but that can affect the leg muscles in the brood because she's been sitting so long. So all you need is a watering can and a little bit of water. So those are just a few basic tips for natural brooding.
Also, I think it's very important to take care of the red mites in those.
Yeah, you must make sure there's no red mite, and you must treat them for lice and that dreadful thing, northern mite, before you start brooding. The other point that you're talking about, parasites, don't sit a broody with scaly leg because it will immediately transfer to your chicks. The one plus that you have with broodies is that their immunity is automatically passed through to the chicks because they are in contact. You need to understand that naturally chickens live in a mixed flock, so you will have adults, growers, and chicks. And so the young chicks pick up immunity and gain immunity from the mixed flock. So you will get much more vigorous top chicks than if you are not rearing the chicks to the best, in the best conditions artificially.
Okay, sorry, another question. Can you put DE powder on the straw?
You mean diatomaceous earth?
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't think it's worth it, really.
No.
You can if you want to. It's an irritation. I'm just thinking it's more of it's designed, as you know, to irritate and crack the carapace of red mite.
Yeah.
You want the broodies to be comfy.
Yes.
So try it, but I wouldn't do it. But
Okay.
it doesn't mean it doesn't work.
And if you do get red mite,
You
you
could
just
get
treat
be,
her-
you,
treat
you,
her the
you
way-
could be stuck. You mustn't have red mite. Say what that you make sure you haven't got it. Now, the way to find out if you've got red mite in your broody boxes is a little bit of corrugated cardboard put in the dark places or in your nest boxes, stick it there with blue tack or sellotape, and
Yeah.
the red mite will go in there.
okay.
Okay, next, Andy.
Next slide. Yep. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
okay.
go on to there. There's your incubator.
So there we go to artificial incubation. When you want to have lots of chickens, lots of chicks, and you don't have the equipment for broodies or don't have the time for broodies, artificial incubation is a very easy way to have many chicks, and so there it's all on the side lines. So you are in control. You need a budget for equipment. Good incubators, yes, they are not very cheap, but when you buy cheap, you buy it twice, I think, because lots of disappointment from very cheap Japanese, Chinese incubators, and so many people call me. I have problems. My chicks won't hatch, but most of all, it's the quality of the egg or the quality of the incubator. I have lots of experience. I hatch around 1,000 chicks a year, not only for myself, but these incubators are from January to the end of May full of eggs. So most of the time I have good results. But as you see here, there is always an analog thermometer. So don't rely on the digital thermometers, hygrometers, because they will fool you. Always check double with the analog meters.
And also, just to reiterate what Danny's saying, make sure you get a mercury thermometer, because some of these red spirit ones are very unreliable. So the mercury one is reliable. They're not easy to find these days, but that's what you need, is a mercury thermometer.
You have to calibrate every thermometer you use. That's why I have a mercury one that's very fine-tuned and calibrated. So then every year, or when I have a new thermometer, I put it in water around 37.5 degrees, and I check them to compare, and then I know he has 1/10 more or 1/10 less than it is in real. So that's why I always keep an eye on the analog thermometer. When I go to morning shift, for example, then I take a quick look. I see every digital is okay, so I don't have to worry till I come back. But I always keep an eye on the analog. So it's also an advantage when you do artificial incubation to put the eggs when they are hatching together from the different bloodlines or different parents. You can keep them apart very easy. So the incubation process itself, it's a matter of reliable techniques in combination with experience and skills. So that's what I told already about the digital meters. And every incubator needs to be fine-tuned to local circumstances. You have to learn how your incubator works. Do test broods with less important eggs. Always, first of all, when I have a new incubator, I put a batch of eggs in, and then I weigh them to 100 of a gram. Put it in an Excel file and weigh the eggs every 5 days. very important to keep track of the weight loss. You have to lose about 50% of weight during the incubation process. So if you weigh them exactly, then you can learn how high or how low the relative humidity needs to be. But that cannot be put right when it's gone wrong in the first 18 days. Then you cannot correct it in the last few days. If they are too heavy, then they haven't lost enough humidity, and the chicks will not hatch properly because they will be too thick and too big for turning around in the egg for opening the air sac, and so they will pick in the air sac, but they don't manage to go through the egg cell, and so that's very important that you lose enough weight. So when you start checking your incubator, then you can do this with exact weighings of the eggs. So then the miracle happens. Was it a good recipe you got, Rachel, from these chicks? What was the cooking temperature?
That is my jam making pan, believe it or not. But that was-
Okay.
I just thought it made a perfect photo. I loved it.
Yes, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So if everything goes right, we have lots of chicks. Here you see my hatcher. There are, I think, better photos lower. No, because it can be divided into four quarters. So in every quarter there can go eggs from different batches. So that's easy to keep them apart when they are born. So then points of attention with the newborn chicks. I always leave them in the incubator about 24 to 48 hours. Normally my chicks are born on Thursday, and I take them out of the incubator on Saturday morning. So it's never a problem when they don't eat because they have the yolk sac that's drawn into the belly button. You can see that when a chick is hatching not good, sometimes you try to peel it, and then you see part of the yolk sac that's still hanging out, so that chick is lost. But this provides food for the first days, so then the chick can learn where it can find food and drink. The surface in the hatcher is also, and in the brooder also, it's very important when the newborn chicks are on a wrong surface when they slide from side to side, and they get splayed legs. If you have a chick with splayed legs, the easiest way to correct it is when you see it early in an early stage, when it's still in the incubator, put it in a cardboard egg tray, close it, and put it in the incubator for half a day. When you take it out, the problem is fixed in most
If it's
cases.
not fixed, get rid of it because it.
Yes.
That's the recipe.
That's the recipe. But if you have very important, I had rare pheasants and so
Oh gosh,
who
yeah.
were inbred, and then you need to fix all you can. So that's my experience when.
Yeah, I know. I do the same with Danny. I call those rare pheasants suicide chicks.
Yes. So what I do the first few days, it's only for 2 days or so. I don't give litter. I put them on the same surface as in the hatchery. You see here, there's some mats that are used for there are some kind of grass mat or what they call it. When you put them on upside down, there are some little notches where they have a good grip on. I work with these for decades already. I clean them with the high pressure cleaner and then disinfect them, and they are very useful for this. So when the chicks are in a brooder, try to give them enough space, but be careful they don't get lost in that big space. Especially the first 48 hours, I give them permanent light. Not very strong light, but light enough that they can find the brooder. Because I always use dark brooders, so the heating plates, or I have from the infrared heaters also. So that's important that they can find the place where they can go under, because the brooder is not clucking like a hen does. Also, grid for songbirds. I think it's very important. For the first days, they can take some grid. I have checked chicks that were 3 or 4 days old that needed to be cold. Then I wanted to check what's inside, and I found a lot of grit in the gizzard. So fresh clean water, it's normal. So then there is the problem of the, how they call it, pasty vents. My experience is I never had this problem with the Bracals, but with the Andalusian and the Spanish, it occurs. Yesterday I checked 35 chicks. Well, 3 or 4 of them had pasty vents, but when you clean it, then normally they will have no problem anymore. But you have to keep an eye on it. For me, it's easy. That's the vaccination for coccidiosis day. So I check every chicken. I clean them. So some information about the heating plate. They are very less consuming. I think about the average 1 watt for 1 chick. So that's very cheap for consumption. The plastic pyramid is very handy, because when you don't use that, they like the heat on the top of the plate, and they all go sit on the top of the plate.
Can you
And
buy
then you
those
end.
separately, Danny?
Please, Rachel.
Can you buy those separately? Where do you get them from? 'Cause I've
From the same supplier, I buy these heating plates.
Because yeah, I
Uh,
have big trouble with that.
yes, I understand. You have to wash and wash,
Yeah.
and it's dirty. There's no litter on top of that, so that's. But also very important is you have to keep an eye on the temperature. Most when they are new, I have no problems. But when they are several years of age, the plates, some of them get too hot. And I had a problem with that. I don't know if everybody sees the picture here. On the back of the pullet. This was a prize-winning pullet, in my opinion. And she was disqualified by the judge because of she had a naked patch on the back. And I remembered I had some chicks, especially the Andalusian, have the problem with that. They go sit under the plate, and when the plate is not dimmed, you can check it perfectly. When you put your fingers under the plate and keep them, and you can't stand the heat, then it means they are too hot. So then I put the dimmer on. And it's also easy, then you can gradually lower the temperature when the chicks age. So that it costs, the dimmers cost €10, so that's no big big money. But these are all from the same brand of the heating plates, and they are available online, I think, everywhere. So the food for the chicks also very important. I give high protein for the first week, only the first week, and my experience is you have to take care of the hours of daylight not being too long. For the first 2 days I give 24 hours daylight, but then I start with only 16 hours, and the first week 22% protein is okay, but no longer than that, because when you give them, let's say, 6 weeks 22% protein, you will have problems with curved crooked toes, or what do you call it?
Yeah, crooked toes or crooked
Yes,
breast.
yes. That can be a big problem when you give too high protein. It needs to be well balanced. I'm also very lucky. My supplier has these different types of food available in pellets, so very easy. Because when you give ground, how do you call it?
Crumb.
Crumb.
Chick crumb,
Yes,
crumb.
chick crumb. They try to find what they like most, and half of it ends on the floor.
One thing, yeah, just to say, to support Danny, what I do exactly the same as what Danny's doing here, but the first feed that the chicks get, and they get it for the first 2 days, is chopped egg. So because of the bright yellow, and again, you're boosting the natural immune system that chicks already have from absorbing the yolk, and the yellowness on the egg really, and they love their egg, and you will see in the first day they won't cotton onto it, and then in the next day they've eaten it in a flash, and then you introduce the crumb. I learned this from exotic pheasant, rearing exotic pheasants for people. And the other tip, that if you've got a few chicks that you want to get them to eat, is what the pheasant boys used to do was put finely chopped parsley or spring onion on top of the egg, and that color really seems to get your chicks eating.
So it's hard-boiled egg, not
Yeah, yeah. And you just know hard-boiled egg, shell it, mash it up with a fork and on a plate or in a feed thing. You obviously got to keep it clean, but just the first feed, it just gets the chicks away really, really well.
Okay. They love the carrot though. I remember saying that in the last meeting. They absolutely love the carrot. You wouldn't have thought it.
Okay. So the last line here is also very important. Watch out for overcrowding. When you see this brooder, it's Rachel's. You cannot keep them for a long time here in this space. Also, you have to be careful when putting heating plates next to each other and to the side. I always try to give them a free space all around the heating plate, because when there are many chicks, they can go to the side, and when the other ones are sitting in front of them, they can be a little bit in a problem position.
Yeah, and I would also like to see some sort of flooring on there. You can either use chopped hemp. I use a product called Easy Chick, which is wood shavings until their legs are strong are not ideal, but I would prefer to see some bedding for the chicks on, right? Because that will get really fleeky, or to be blunt, shitty very, very quickly.
It does, and I had to clean them out twice a day. But they've got a new brooder now. I've split them into two, and they've got much more room. And I've got to say they're outside during the day.
What I use, I should have taken some pictures for the first 3 weeks, are 8 by 4 foot sheets of hardboard cut in half and then pinned together, so you have circles, so the chicks don't get trapped in corners.
Okay.
Okay, so when they go to the next stage, I always use hanging drinkers and feeders. It's very easy to bring them to the level of the chicks as they grow, and then they don't spoil so much. And also the drinking water needs to be high enough so they don't get messy in it. And also an advantage of giving pellets is the drinking water is not getting dirty as quick as if you give crumbles, because it stays on their beaks and so on, and they go drinking, and then it goes dirty. Here you see on top LED lights. I always try to give the same day length, about 16 hours every day. So because these are rather dark spaces, and with this little bit of extra light, I can have the chicks at the same day length from when I hatch in February till they are in May. So that they need to have time to eat, but not. They also need their night rest, in my opinion. So next is how you go to do the individual identification. I use these rings for wings for several years already. They are easy to apply. You can give chicks different combinations. You can use different colors, left leg, right leg, and so on. But you have to keep good track of the data that's behind it. So normally I have one unique color for one bloodline. So during the growing of the chicks, I can track the different origins until the moment they get their exhibition ring or official ring. But I always keep the old ones for next year, also to give color combinations to growers that are of some importance, that I want to keep track of their origin. So that's why these are very interesting. When you have some ordered, some more than you needed, you can use them into next year. When they go to shows, of course, you need to take them off, but then you have the numbers and then you have the quality already in your hand. Paul also said about the wing tags. Also, I don't know if it's used in England, but the two punch.
Yeah.
These are seen in Germany at shows, but I have the feeling that it's not so so nice to see a hole in the foot webbings. But the wing tags can be very easy to keep track of your chicks, but it's like you see on the photograph. Here you see the different bloodlines already separated from each other, especially with Andalusians. You can see how good they will be laced and what the ground color will be. And in some cases, you can really identify by the color, and all the rings on the legs have the same color with the darkest or the lightest chicks. But the wing tags are a problem here in Belgium, because when there is a wing tag, you get disqualified at show. So you have to remove them all before you go to shows. So you need another type of identification. So that's the latest slide. I have one more slide. That's for the suggestions for next sessions. There's one thing Andy talked about. This is the red ring on the egg for an egg that was fertile but died in the first 1 or 2 days. This is another thing. It's a crooked breastbone. It looks horrible. That was from golden brackles that were born under a broody hen,
Mm.
and it was in summer already. It was very late, and they went to sleep in the tree from when they were about 10 days old, I think. They were already in the trees, and all the chicks had those breastbones. So that's something to take care of. Here you see something I inherited from my mother-in-law. She had bad visibility, so she had a magnifying light, and that's what I use for selecting on the combs for chicks about 1 or 2 weeks old already. You can see the problem combs, so you can select very early. Okay, that's it.
What exactly are you looking for at 1 or 2 weeks old?
If the serrations are very irregular, or there are only 2 or 3 serrations, depending on how many you have to select from. You must know when they start growing bigger and bigger, they eat more, they need more space.
And cost more. And cost more.
They cost more. If you want to keep them until they have enough meat for eating them, then you have big facilities with many chicks that you won't use. So I must say, it looks probably very rude, but I have to select early and I have to go. And the fox eats what I want him to eat, not what he wants. He's next to my property, so when he comes around, always something is there he can eat.
Fair enough. Yeah, and we're doing that one. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
that was it.
Very
Yeah,
good.
yeah, gosh, yeah, 8:20. Are there any quick questions?
I tend to ask as I go along.
Regarding the wing tags, can we still show in the UK?
I've done it for 30 years without any problems.
Top job. Top job. That was just
I wouldn't wing tag at day old. If you're going to be an exhibitor, if you are wing tagging at day old, you will potentially damage the development of the wing. It's better to wait till they're sort of 5-6 weeks old before you wing tag.
Okay.
The question is how many bloodlines have you got, and how are you going to identify them? Lots of people use, myself included, cable ties, and that's fine as long as you watch for the growth, so that they don't end up having welfare issues when the leg grows quicker than you can change the leg identification. Obviously, you can get different colours, and the wing bands that Danny talked about are something which some people use. Some people use. Rachel seems to have some small rings that she seems to have on her chicks at the moment. Maybe they're pigeon wings rings or something. But it's all about being able to identify and keep the records and keep the bloodlines separate. The wing tags are marketed and used throughout Europe in the breeder situation, but as Danny said, not in the show situation. And the reason they've got a license to tag day-old chicks is particularly for that reason. When they're talking about large groups of like on broilers and pheasant farms and duck farms and everything else. And the thing to remember, the A tag, which you'll be getting information about in the newsletter, the plus tag A from Roxanne, you can put in with your fingers, but once they get to 4 or 5 weeks, then, well, once they get older than 10 days, then you have to use Plastag B, which you need an applicator for, because the skin gets tougher. But you know, Andy's opinion is not to use it, but I know lots of people do. And
no, I use an applicator. I just use an applicator. You know, as I say, I've used wing tags all along, you know, for my identification of strains. And the Poultry Club do not penalise you, because it's the same as having a sealed Poultry Club ring on a wing. So, you know, if people are, you know, it's not, they're not going to prejudice you for it. But I simply do it for 2 reasons. One, I can identify what chicks have come from what breeding pen, and 2, how old they are, because I get a number printed. There is a number printed on one side and there's the year printed on the other. So I know how old the birds are, or whether they're good for breeding next year or whatever. It's very simple. But if you're going to wing tag at day old, and I know the commercial boys do it, and then you find that the wing doesn't develop correctly for show, that's and also it's much easier with a chick to cause damage to the wing. And so unless you really know what you're doing, I would be a bit careful about that. That's my personal opinion anyway, and it's certainly not something I would do.
Yeah. And certainly the Poultry Club have only just in the last 3 weeks agreed to allow wing tags, and the Poultry Club are administering the wing tags like they do the leg rings. And so they'll be colour coordinated to the European standard as per the leg rings, and they will have the numbers on that the leg rings have. So basically, they identify it as country code, year, and then a sequential number. So it would be GB 21 XXX1 and XXX2. And that's the format which would be adopted normally, but this is only a trial period for 1 year. So actually, they will have the Plastag A's will have, I think it's a W on them, and the Plastag B's will have T. But that information will all be on the order form. Which a copy of which will be in the newsletter, which we're going to put out in the next week to try and show people what we're doing. So, any other questions? Thanks very much, Danny and Andy.
Yeah,
And
thank you very much.
Thank you.
it's been very informative.
I just want to say hello, Jason, in America. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
How are you?
Right here. Hey.
Jason has received some of my eggs and currently has them in the incubator. So nice to see you. Thanks for joining us.
No, thank y'all for having me.
Okay. So has anybody else got any questions?
Not yet. I'll remember something after you've closed the conversation down.
Yeah. That was really interesting. That's a really interesting talk. Thanks, Danny and Andy. I found some of that really, especially like the egg, the anatomy of the egg and how it all works. I find things like that fascinating now. Not something I would have thought about 2 years ago, but it is now.
All right. Okay. I want to go and have some supper because I rushed back from milking cows, so I need something to eat. All right. Bye all.
When do we want to have the next meeting? 4
Preferably
weeks?
on a night I'm not working.
Yeah.
Well, what are we now? End of March. Are we talking another 2 months? Maybe we could do it on selection, because we will all have had chicks by then and need to make some difficult decisions.
I try to make many pictures of what's wrong and what's right.
Oh, very
So
good.
That'd be good.
Perfect.
I hope it's difficult for me to find something that's wrong. then I have good results.
I now use my magnifying glass for, I have one for sewing like that on a, with the light and stand. So I now use that for the chicks.
Yeah, okay,
Right.
yeah.
So what do you think? Do you think monthly is too frequent?
Yes,
So
it's
I know-
too frequent
I
for
know-
me.
Personally, I think yes, because
The coming months are very busy for me. So
I think
But-
2 to 3 months.
yes.
yeah. So
End of May would be good, wouldn't it?
end
So
of
we
May.
can
Yes.
see,
At
yeah,
least
yeah.
end of May.
we can
Yes.
see a bit of progress and whatnot.
Sound all right with you, Danny? 2 months.
Okay, it's for me. It's okay for me.
Fantastic.
By the end of May, I can prepare something on selection of growers.
Fantastic. I'll send you lots of pictures.
Okay. Right.
Okay.
What I'll do then, Rachel, I'll get Andrew to book the Thursday at the end of May.
Yeah.
And then that can go in the newsletter as well, can't it? Then?
Certainly can.
I have to check my working system scheme at that moment because I don't know exactly if I have evening or night shift or morning shift.
Okay. Well, once we
Feel your pain, Danny.
once we got a date, I will message you, Danny, and make sure it's all right.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Does
Okay.
anybody know if you can get a chick pellet in England? I've never seen one. I've never been able to find one. It's
What?
always just
Chick crumb.
yeah, instead of chick crumb, like a small pellet for chicks. Because like Danny was saying about crumbs sticking to their beaks and messing in water, and
They are way too selective also. Sometimes you see when you give crumbs and they have used half of it,
Mm.
yeah, you always see a lot
they
in the
just
bottom.
start to get hungry because they don't want to eat what's left in
Yeah.
they get attached to some parts of the food and they can select them, so that makes a problem.
In the UK, they have growers pellets.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not a chick pellet.
No, I think Garvo do it. From what I
Do Garvo do one? Do they?
I think they do. They do
Yes,
different
I'm
ones.
sure Garvo is from the Netherlands, so they
Yeah,
will
it is. Yeah.
they will
Yeah, I mean,
definitely
there's
have
stuff to them.
it's not the cheapest food, but it's
No.
a very high quality.
Yeah, it's good.
Uh,
We've used it before.
Yeah, we
if you
can't
don't
get
have
it in
lots of
Ireland,
chicks.
but I got it in the UK last year. I had a few bags and I brought it back. They had
Yeah.
different size crumbs and things on it, and
I just wondered if maybe Verse Lager or someone like that made a pellet. I don't know.
Versilaga is also Belgium, but
Yeah.
I don't think they have the starter pellets.
Right.
I don't think.
Okay.
We needed to especially ask the manufacturer
Yeah.
for having pellets.
Right.
But many of the Brahma breeders and so they even they need 500 kilos or so in one season from the starters. So it's interesting for the manufacturer to make batches of pellets, and they have a very small size, so they are eaten from day one.
All right. It's tiny then. It's small. Wow, that's interesting to know. Maybe we can look into that then.
So, is there anything else you wanted to say, Paul? I know we were talking about the breeding, the clan breeding.
And I stop the share of
Yes,
my document, but it's free for everybody to use. If you have questions, particularly about breeding or incubating, you can always find me on Facebook. So
I should be
I will
uploading
try.
it to the website if I can, Danny.
Okay, feel free.
Let's see.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
People.
Right, I'm going to go and bath my daughter and put her to bed.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
It's nice to finally see you
Right.
all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. thanks for coming, Natasha.
Thank
Thanks
you for having
everyone for
us.
coming.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah,
See you
no, you're
soon.
welcome.
Paul.
Yeah,
Bye.
cheers then. See you, Lewis. Cheers, mate. Thank you. Bye.
Okay,
Right.
goodbye.
Okay. Thanks,
Right.
everyone.
Thank
Thanks.
you ever so
Thanks,
much.
Gareth.
See you
Yeah.
all.
Nice to see you again, Eleanor. Yeah. So we'll book the next one for 2 months,
Yeah,
and keep your eye out for the newsletter.
Yeah.
That will be coming out. So you'll do some minutes from tonight, Rachel, and
I will.
we'll add that as well if we can, and we'll also have the recording somewhere. The recording of tonight will go on the
Hopefully.
website as well, hopefully.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Okay, that's it.
Nice to
Lovely.
meet
you.
Nice to see you all.
Okay.
Cheerio.
Cheers then.
Thanks.
Any
Okay,
questions? You know
goodbye.
where